Welcome to the Front Four Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Marchese. Alongside me, as always, he's back home from Arizona, Jeff Azaparty.
And back in the basement today, Maddie.
We're
back
taking
in
this
a bit
dungeon.
Early. Here we are. It's being early. There's a lot of noise upstairs. This was the only quiet place in the house to do this, so I kind of had to. So
my house is all quiet. The dog is sleeping behind me somewhere. It is very quiet until he needs to go out to pee, and then we're in trouble.
For sure.
You can follow us on Twitter at MattyMar89, at J_party, and at _4 fantasy. It's been 3 weeks. We can start to make some assessments on teams' offenses, players and how they're performing. But we're going to start off with the Pittsburgh offense. And week 1 against the Bills, the offense wasn't great. The only reason why they won was because their defense and their special teams was really good.
But by the end, they kind of came along. They had that one touchdown that put them over. Like, you thought it was starting to come together. Like, if you asked me to judge them at the end of, I wouldn't have thought it was as dire as I do now. They looked like maybe they could pull it together. They were starting to find a groove, but man, the last couple of weeks, I don't know what's like.
Not great from Ben Roethlisberger. So he's tied for 13th in passing yards with Jared Goff. He's got only 3 touchdown passes in the first 3 weeks, which is very un-Ben-like. And he's got 3 interceptions, which is very Ben-like. Here's the interesting thing with Roethlisberger. Of the 801 passing yards, 433 are gained after the catch, and his air yards per attempt is right where it was last year at 6.9, which is not very good. So he's even less mobile than he was last season and in previous years, and he's dealing with some injuries himself, and he's got Deontay Johnson missed last week, and Juju Smith-Schuster was out, and then he had to throw the ball 19 times to Najee Harris. I'm at a point now where the way I kind of look at this offense is, yes, I trust Najee Harris just because there's nobody else behind him, and he's a volume-based.
Benny Snell has 2 snaps, I think, or 2 carries all year.
Yeah.
Like, he's the workhorse there, and there's no doubt about it that he's the top dog there. So
we trust Najee. Deontay Johnson, when he's in the lineup, is going to be the alpha. He's going to get all the targets, and then after that, Juju has a higher floor than Chase Claypool does because he's got those short yardage catches. Yeah. And we saw the impact of him not being there when Najee got 19 targets. I don't trust.
And Ben, just like you said, can't throw the ball downfield, which is primarily what Chase does, right? Chase
exactly.
Except for last week with the 2 other guys hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I kind of look at this like Deontay Johnson, you're going to slot him in if he's healthy. Najee Harris, you're going to slot him in if he's healthy. After that, like Juju's probably a flex play. And Chase Claypool, I hate to say it, but if the other 2 guys are in the lineup, he's on the bench for me.
Yeah, no,
I know
hear
that
you,
hurts
Maddie.
you because he's your guy.
I thought he was. I was looking for him to have a big breakout year, and I said it. I thought, if Ben came back healthier and could throw the ball, but man, yeah, Ben's affecting this whole thing. That offensive line is having problems. Like you were even saying, Najee Harris, like even he's not doing it in a conventional way. His rushing is not getting him his points. Like, you know what I mean? Like that offensive line is having problems too. Holding the gap and holding the line to give Ben the time he needs, which is why he's always checking down.
And not for anything, did you see the play where Roethlisberger had like a little check down and he literally fell over his feet?
Yeah,
like that
over himself.
We are at a point where we can't even trust Ben Roethlisberger to move 3 feet in the pocket.
It's true.
Like
it's unreal.
He's a Hall of Famer. There's no question about that. But you cannot trust him right now. It's just
again, we saw with Peyton, right? The decline can be quick and it can be harsh. Like, and we're seeing that, I think, now.
It's painful. So
the other guy I wanted to bring up there is the tight end, Pat Farouk. Like, with Ben doing the shorter passes, like, does he fit in? Do you like him above any of the receivers there? Like, I don't know. He seems he's a rookie. He's young. He's athletic. I saw him make a couple plays that gave me some hope for him. So I wonder how he fits into this.
I'm still waiting because I think he would get the run if Juju misses any time. Because they might run him out of the slot a little bit more instead of a guy like maybe James Washington. Although Deontay Johnson, they may want to get the ball in his hands, so they may play him out of the slot a little bit more if Juju isn't playing. I'm still waiting. Ben's arm just does not give me any confidence to trust more than one guy to be successful. There's no way you
can do that right now. It's
I like Freiermuth long term for sure. a lot of this is also dependent on who the quarterback is next year for Pittsburgh, because it's not Ben Roethlisberger. I'm pretty sure it's not Ben Roethlisberger. So we did talk about one Canadian. We're going to go to another one. And Chuba Hubbard gets this great opportunity. And we saw the videos after he got drafted by the Panthers of Matt Rule saying, like, you know, my wife told me to draft you so that you didn't kill me like you did in college and all that kind of stuff. And it's been a whirlwind for Christian McCaffrey managers, because it seems like whenever things start to get going, he gets hurt. He only played 3 games last season. He's already hurt 3 games into this season. And as we approach week 4, Chuba Hubbard is given this opportunity. I know people were like, oh, we should think about Royce Freeman. Listen, what we know about the Carolina situation is how they will use the running back if Christian McCaffrey's out. Mike Davis in the however many games. So he finished RB12 last year in 15 games. Right. And in the games that Christian McCaffrey did not play, Mike Davis averaged 17 touches a game. So I feel like that is exactly what's going to happen with Chuba Hubbard. He had the 11 carries for about 50 yards, and he had a couple of catches. That was 13 touches, and McCaffrey left in, I believe it was the second quarter. So he had at least a quarter and a bit of work. So,
and you could see him get a bit more comfortable in the second half. Like, you know, like you saw him breaking into it. Here's my question for you though, Maddie. Does him being a rookie like scare you at all? Like Mike Davis last year was more a veteran. They have Royce Freeman there behind him. Do you think Royce Freeman could kind of fit in the mix there somewhere, or even like vulture those, your favorite word there, vulture some of the carries inside the 10 for the touchdowns?
So I did think about that, and Royce Freeman looked okay.
Yeah,
but I just think
Royce Freeman is what he is, right?
Exactly.
He never lived up to the potential.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that Chuba is the guy who's going to get the work. They will mix in Royce Freeman. It's not going to be the Chuba show for 25 touches. That's not happening. But he was a very productive runner in college. Like if he had come out of college not last year, but the year before, we would have been talking about a potential first-round pick. So the talent is certainly there. And I believe he was drafted in the 4th round this season. So they obviously saw something in him, and they knew that they needed to grab some sort of help behind Christian McCaffrey, because obviously there's some injury concerns there. I think when you look at players around the league who are guaranteed 15 to 18 touches a week, it's not a long list. It really isn't now. So for me, Chuba Hubbard is in the RB2 conversation with some RB1 upside, because that Carolina offense has actually looked pretty good. Like, and Chuba he dropped a touchdown on a short yardage pass.
I know. And that's why I wondered if maybe that would affect what he does, and like trying to give the ball to Royce maybe in the red zone. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it was interesting. But it's his first game. That's what I mean. Are those just rookie jitters, and maybe they try and rely on a veteran like they did? Mike Davis had been in the league for a while last year, right? When he got that role and that opportunity. So is it even just fine? Because we're seeing a lot of other rookies are struggling like this year. Like, it's not always an easy adaptation into the NFL.
For sure.
So I just wondered if the rookie nerves and whatever fitting into that offense and figuring it out would play a little bit of an effect on him. Anyway, so with the touches and the play he's getting. So
I trust Matt Rule. That's what I will say. I
think Matt Rule is a great point.
Is a good coach.
I agree. Yep.
And he's going to get the most out of his guys. Look at what DJ Moore's been able to do this season. Yeah. Look at Sam Darnold is the prime example of a guy who goes from a really bad coach in Adam Gase to what we all believe is a good coach in Matt Rule. And he's been really good. Now, they have a test this week because Dallas's defense has improved week over week. They looked a lot better against the Eagles, and they looked pretty good against the the Chargers as well. So this is going to be a test for the Panthers. We're going to see what they're really made of, but I think Chuba is definitely the guy going forward there. Tight ends. The position has always been one of those that we say, okay, I didn't get the top 5 guys. What do I do next? Like Noah Fant was.
We talked about it. Yeah, there's that gap there, right? Between the top guys, which you either draft early or you wait, but you always think you can maybe get one.
Yeah, and Noah Fant was a guy that was drafted outside that top 6 that everybody's like, okay, he can move in. He hasn't been good, even with Jerry Jeudy out of the lineup. So how are you targeting tight ends if you missed out on one of those
top 5? And another guy we should mention is Kyle Pitts, right? Came in with all this great stuff. Like, oh, great, these high expectations. Everybody's, and I think people are ready to like sell them off already. Like, they're not sure what they got because that offense is terrible. So that being said, I'm targeting the tight ends that are on good offenses who maybe just get the ball moving downfield and can score touchdowns. A guy who maybe could score the end zone, like a Gerald Everett, who we talked about before, who can maybe score you a touchdown and get you the points, right? It's Jared Cook. It's guys like that, like for sure.
Yeah,
those are the guys I'm tight. Just guys in good offenses, even if they're the ball's spread around through guys. It's a guy who in the red zone, again, tight ends are the big targets at rookie, especially rookie QBs and the young QBs in the league. It's who they look for. They tend to look for in the end zone. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
that's how I'm doing it this year.
And so Everett goes on the COVID list, so he's going to be even more available. Guys are going to be dropping him, and he just came off of his best game of the season. He played like 76% of the snaps, and he looked good. So
again, yeah, it's just a guy those guys you can stream. You look for the matchups, you look for a good offense that's going to score a lot, and maybe you take a chance if you're having problems from the tight end thing. You got to understand that it's either going to be boom bust. You're going to get some duds, you won't get things, but what you're hoping for is that they score, right? Like get in the end zone.
And if you missed out on one of those tight ends, the likelihood is that you have some roster. Like your floor is pretty good.
Yeah, right.
That you can get away with doing that. So a couple of guys that I had, Dawson Knox is one. Now Dawson Knox is interesting because he's only got an 11% target share, but he's got touchdowns. But
again, he's in a good offense that moves the ball, and in the end zone, Josh Allen can find him. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he's going to score each and every week.
And the thing is with the Buffalo offense, it's exactly why I like to have Zach Moss, because when you get into under the 10-yard line or less, that offense is going to score touchdowns. So
most of the way, it's going to be in the air. Like, they don't run the ball in
usually,
right? Unless it's Josh Allen taking it himself, like he's looking for targets or it's a drop back. Like he's mostly like he throws for a lot of touchdowns. So he's got to have guys.
It's about opportunity, though, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
If that offense is as good as we think it is, and it looked really good against Washington, they're going to push the ball. Those types of guys are going to have opportunities. And if you're looking at like, hey, what's my best chance for a guy to get a touchdown? Like you said, those are the offenses that you want to target. The other one is Dalton Schultz. Okay, you wanted to finish with
No, I was just going to say, I'm like, again, you can't expect it to happen every week. You're not going to have a hit every time, but you take that chance and it's worth it, I think. Especially from a position that right now there's not too much consistency there. Like
No. Even Gronk had a couple of good weeks, and then he got hurt.
Exactly.
And who knows what's going for. And Antonio Brown's probably.
I mean, I'd bet on Gronk scoring this week in New England, though.
I feel like that's going to happen.
I feel like, they're going to shove it in the Patriots' face. So I could see Gronk scoring this week. Anyway, sorry, you had another name you wanted.
Dalton Schultz. At least 6 catches.
That's a perfect example, man.
Yes.
Perfect.
In 2 of the 3 games.
Well, I was going to say, and it was week 1, right?
And then week 3.
Yeah, week 2 was a bit of a dud. The other tight end got it, but yeah, exactly. It's why I would say it's a perfect example. Sorry.
So it helps that Gallup and Amari Cooper. Gallup's out and Amari Cooper's banged up, but he seems like he's the clear number 1 over Blake Jarwin. So this is a stat from Field Yates with ESPN. Great fantasy analyst, by the way. Just an overall seemingly a great guy. Dalton Schultz, since the start of last season, has 77 catches for 758 yards and 6 touchdowns. And the key to all of this is he is in a contract year. We're seeing it all around the league. It happens. Mike Williams, who we will talk about, is a prime example of that. And we saw Dalton Schultz get real open against the Eagles. And it does look like the Eagles are going to be a team that you should target if you are trying to stream tight ends, because it didn't look like they could cover Dalton Schultz at all in the Monday Nighter. So
no kidding. That's true.
It's very interesting to see what that offense is going to be. We're expecting Gallup is going to be back soon, but Amari Cooper's got the rib injury, and that doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon, especially if he's playing through it. So Dalton Schultz is a guy that I would look at, and he's got the draft capital. I believe he was a 3rd-round pick.
For sure. And like you said, in 2 out of 3 weeks, if he's going to give you that kind of production, totally worth it. Totally worth the risk, right? And obviously he has some kind of connection with Dak. So yeah, for sure. Why wouldn't you?
All right. So some surprises, good and bad. You and I agree on this good one, and then we'll kind of we'll riff on a couple of other ones that fall under the same category. But Mike Williams has been unbelievable.
Unreal. Wide receiver 2 right now, right? Like
wide receiver 2, 22 catches, 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, and they're following through. We talked about this. Not all the time does coach speak actually come through when the season starts, but this is the one that actually came true. They're like, hey, we need to get the ball in Mike Williams' hand. And what have they done? Oh my God, they got the ball in Mike Williams' hand. And he's not just a deep threat, and he's not just a guy that you throw up a 50-50 ball for. He's a good receiver. I'm stunned by this. I'm stunned because he was great in college, and they drafted him as such. I think he was like the 7th overall pick. So, I mean, yeah.
And he came in with high expectations last year. Didn't live up to it. So a lot of people were kind of down on him or say they didn't see this coming, but wow. And obviously, again, you talk about the connection with the quarterback. He's got it with Justin Herbert. Like, without a doubt, he's being targeted more, like, especially in the red zone. Like, yeah, what else could you want from a receiver this year?
Not one thing.
The only guy above him is Cooper Kupp, who is also like an incredible start. Like, it's unreal. It's awesome to watch.
So other wide receivers that have been, overperforming, like Brandon Cooks is another guy that we spoke about. He's been excellent. And he was good again with Davis Mills as the quarterback because they just throw him the ball. He's getting the volume and it's working for him.
And Maddie, I know you wanted to do it after, but let's go to Jamar Chase now then, if we're going to talk about these guys who are just doing amazing. Like, I know we were going to save it for the 2-minute drill, but let's just talk about him now.
Let's do it.
He's been unreal too, with 4 touchdowns in 3 weeks, like, just performing like crazy. And in the preseason, when everyone was down on him again, made that comment about catching balls, didn't look great. People were ready to say he was a bust already, and he's been unreal since the season got started. And again, a guy who has a previous chemistry with his quarterback that's transitioned right to the NFL quickly. Like, it's unreal to watch him play every week. He's been awesome.
So he's only had 16 targets, but he's converted them into 11 catches for 220 yards, and he's got 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's the big one right there. So you can't expect that for the rest of the year, but man, he's locked and loaded as like a must start every week.
But there's got to be a balance here. At some point, they're going to start throwing him the ball more, and they're going to get him involved maybe in the shorter passing game, and that's just going like. So it may in turn balance itself out as the season progresses. I think that's great. I just remember hearing he can't create separation. He can't see the ball when it gets to it before it's thrown, and he can't catch. He's got a case of the drops. What?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know. Have you seen him play? Yeah. And it's different, right? Like preseason getting ready. And then there are guys who just compete when the game's on, like when it matters, right? Like it's a different kind of mindset when the game actually means something. And you can see that transition in his mind. And he's a gamer big time.
It's not like Jamar Chase is fighting for a roster spot here.
Exactly.
Like,
and
he's taking 5th overall, guys. Like, come on.
This talent was there. Hey, let me go. Can we swing back to Mike Williams? Because there's something I want to say.
Yeah.
Like, he's a like, what would you say? Like a wide receiver 1 right now? Like, you have to play him, right?
Well, you're playing him for sure, but I don't know if he finishes there. I think he finishes.
I was going to say, so rest of the season, how do you say that was going to be my question to you? Rest of the season, him over Keenan Allen, or how do you like that? Like, how do you see that playing out? Like, Keenan Allen's kind of one of the guys to transition over, like his underperforming, who maybe hasn't lived up to the expectations this year. Like, who would you rather have rest of year? Like,
but even Keenan Allen is like he's still a wide receiver, like a high-end wide receiver too, which I think is kind of where I think the expectation.
And sometimes for one to be good, you need both, right? Like one, because
very look at Juju when Antonio Brown was there.
Exactly. That's a perfect example.
Antonio Brown didn't need Juju. Just
yes,
just to be clear,
it's true. But some guys can't transition to the number 1, but Mike Williams is doing it. It's crazy.
So I think they're going to be. They're both going to be in the back end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 conversation. They have the quarterback to do it. And
exactly, it's true.
And they throw
as long as he can stay healthy, then just get him a line.
That's just it. Yeah. And I think because he's not going up for 50-50 balls all the time, he's going to be at least
his body will have a little less wear on it.
Exactly.
Sure, without a doubt.
Let's go to the bad here. And there's plenty.
There's
plenty of bad. There's lots of bad.
There's a ton.
So we can start with the wide receivers. So there's a grouping of them. Like Calvin Ridley hasn't lived up to expectations. because that Atlanta offense is dreadful. Like you mentioned, Kyle Pitts. I don't even know how much of that is on Kyle Pitts.
No, without a doubt, without a doubt. Defenses are targeting him already to shut him down because that offense is so bad. Like that's a rookie that you come in with a game plan to, like I think you saw last week. Like guys are shadowing him, their target. They know to shut him down, and they shut down the whole offense, which is crazy.
Yeah,
and they can't open up the running game like we talked about. Mike Davis can't get going. Like it's
Cordell Patterson is the guy there. Like.
And again, another aging quarterback who I don't think anyone saw come. Matt Ryan seems to be just checking down every time. Like it's crazy how panicked he seems when he has the ball and for more than a couple seconds. Like,
so we thought that Houston was going to be the worst team in the league with Jacksonville. It may actually be Atlanta and Jacksonville. Like that may actually be what's going to happen here. Okay, so other wide receivers, AJ Brown.
AJ Brown is the one he's another one who, like we talked about Chase Claypool earlier, I really thought was poised for a breakout year, especially with the addition of Julio Jones. Like we said, that complementing other receiver, like whether it's a low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2, like, you know, I thought that would really help AJ Brown, like with his breakout year, and it just hasn't happened. Like I know he got hurt last year, he left really early, but even before that, he's struggling. He's made jokes about like not being able to catch the ball, but he is really struggling this year, and that Tennessee offense is hurting.
AJ Brown feels like he's been questionable every week for the last year. Like he really does.
Yeah, for sure.
Julio Jones,
for a guy who looks like such a fine specimen, like he's built and ripped. Like you see when he gets the ball, like his yards after catch have been incredible. Like he makes plays after. I know it's true,
but he seems to always be battling something. Another one, Julio Jones, questionable this week. He's had the one good game. He did have a touchdown taken away from him that should have been a touchdown. But
I thought they would be like the Keenan Allen, Mike Williams
100%.
combo. Like that's why. So if we're gonna say Mike Williams and Keenan Allen on the good side, like AJ Brown and Julio Jones on the bad side.
It's Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs has had a lot of targets. He has a lot of catches, but he hasn't had that one big game yet. The Bills have been spreading the ball around. That's another guy that
the one thing
with.
No, the one thing I was going to say about Tennessee is that they always seem to kind of figure it out at the end of the year when it matters. Like they put it all together at the end of the year and always make a run in the playoffs. Like I think they've done it for the last 2 years. Like, and that's what you maybe hope for, because you're not getting rid of AJ Brown or Julio Jones. Like you just kind of hope.
And you can't trade him because the price is too low.
At the value he's at right now, no chance.
So they get the Jets this week. So if they can't figure it out against the Jets,
and here's the thing, that's what I was about to say about AJ Brown. Like these weeks, the next 2 weeks, they got weaker teams, and if he's out, then what you drafted him for, you're not going to get the value out of him on these games where it's supposed to be like, he's got these weak matchups, but now that he's hurt, you don't even get the benefit of that. Like it's crazy.
Well, they are going to play the Jags. They are going to play the Jags again, so at least they get one game, and they got to play Houston still. So I mean,
I'm just saying, like the value in these weeks that he's missing too against these weaker teams is like killing me
for sure. Another bad one. This one kind of really sticks out to me, and that's Jonathan Taylor, RB28.
I was going to say, like, we just grouped a bunch of running backs together, or a bunch of wide receivers together. There's a bunch of running backs you can group together. And I don't know if you should blame like the offensive coordinators or what, but Jonathan Taylor is definitely one of the kind of duds so far.
Taylor's not getting it done. So inside the 10-yard line, he has 8 attempts for -1 yard. And inside the 5, he has 6 attempts for 0 yards. He has no touchdowns.
Wow.
And when you look at what he was inside the 10 last year, 25 attempts for 43 yards and 9 touchdowns. So something doesn't make sense here. Maybe it's the sophomore jinx. Maybe it's whatever.
And on a team that really needs the run for them to be any good. Like with Carson Wentz, especially, like they should, and him banged up a bit, they should be relying on the run so much.
Yeah,
like it's insane.
So the Colts coaching staff has clearly noticed his struggles, as I'm assuming that they would. Nyheim Hines received 78% of the red zone snaps compared to Taylor's 33 this past weekend. The total snap share was actually Nyheim Hines 54% to Taylor's 49. They were also trailing for a lot of that game. But it's not as if Jonathan Taylor's a guy that's just like, hey, we can't throw him the ball. Jonathan Taylor was very good as a pass catcher last year, very reliable. So how you don't have both of them on the field at the same time, especially with the receiving core that they have right now, which isn't very good.
No kidding.
They've got to do something to get Jonathan Taylor going, get him into space. Run some screens for him. Give him some confidence. I just don't think that they are there yet with him. And we'll see what happens going forward here. But you obviously you're going to play Jonathan Taylor because he's going to get the ball.
He's
going to get the
There's
carries.
no way. Yeah.
But like, is Nyheim Hines now a flex option for you in PPR leagues? He probably is, because he's at least gotten value. And if he's getting red zone touches, there's a chance for touchdowns here that maybe there isn't as much with Jonathan Taylor, which I can't believe that I just said that, but I did.
Know, it is insane to hear and do. And that's what I mean. Like, I kind of want to give my duds or whatever we're calling, like, surprises that are let down so far this year to like offensive core. Like, I don't understand how you don't establish the run to open up your passing game. Like, the best example was last Monday night, when the Eagles couldn't get a ground game going, and it shut down Jalen Hurts all game. Like, it hurt him without the game.
Miles Sanders had 2 carries.
Which is insane. Exactly. Or another example, Antonio Gibson. What happened to him being the next Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah.
Like, like they give him a screen pass and he goes for 75 yards. They're just not giving these guys the ball, and I truly don't understand it. Or Urban Meyer all of a sudden figured out that James Robinson's a pretty good back. He had a great week last week. Like, it took him 3 weeks to know that, especially after last year. Like, that's why, I don't know. Some of my duds might be these coaches and the play calling. Like, I truly don't understand it. So hopefully you see better volume out of there. Even Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a good bounce back week because he got the opportunity.
But he still
made the most of it. He still fumbled. I know. Yeah. And seriously,
like, I thought
KC seemed to draft him because he never fumbled. Like, he didn't fumble in college. Like, I think I had the stat last week. Like, he wasn't a fumble. Like, he never fumbled, and now it seems to be in his head, and it's crazy.
Somebody once tweeted, it was after Clyde Edwards-Helaire got drafted, and I want to say it was Brad Starks on Twitter. I think that's who it was, so I apologize if it wasn't, or whoever it was. But they asked the question with video: is Clyde Edwards-Helaire just a mildly better Devin Singletary? I mean,
it makes sense. It does make sense.
Seems like it was a pretty good call at the time, and he got hammered for it on Twitter.
That's fine.
But I don't know. It looks.
And again, they're offenses that don't rely on these guys. Like, they don't need them to be good. Like, I mean, he helps what he does, but like, they're not relying on him, so they're not forcing the ball like we just said Indy has to or should do with Jonathan Taylor. Like, their offense runs fine when they're duds, when they're not doing great. Like,
just imagine, Jeff, that Clyde Edwards-Helaire got drafted ahead of Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins. Like, imagine what one of those running backs would look like in Kansas City.
It's crazy.
I mean,
but everybody was okay with Helaire, right? Like, they were hyped for him last year. Like, oh, he's going to be great. He's going to fit in there. He's going to do this. Like, none of it's come to fruition.
Okay, I thought that DeAndre Swift was an absolute lock to go to Kansas City. I thought it was a lock, and turns out it helped.
It would have been the right call for sure.
Yeah, it helped because going to Detroit helped his it dropped his dynasty value. I said it from the beginning that the 2 top backs in that draft were Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift. They just offer you the most. Dobbins was a close third, but that's how I had it. I had Edwards-Helaire like 6th, I think.
But again, and that's what I mean. I think Kansas City pretty much just took Helaire because he doesn't fumble. Like, just the guy you give the ball to. Here's what you need to do. Just keep the ball, and that's it. And now all of a sudden he's got like fumbleitis big time. It's crazy.
Okay, let's get to the 2-minute drill. We'll actually try. So I thought about this. We've been trying to keep it to 2 minutes, but 2-minute drills in the NFL aren't actually 2 minutes. So we've been okay. So our timing is just about right.
And we did a bunch of the 2-minute drill in that last
exactly.
Point. Like, we flew through some names. It's crazy.
I only have 2 things in here anyway, so we're actually might keep it to that.
Oh, there you go.
Lions coach Dan Campbell said we will see more of DeAndre Swift. Now, Dan Campbell may be crazy, but the Detroit Lions have been actually very, very competitive this year. So maybe Dan Campbell
been in every
game
they've played. It's true.
Yeah.
And what did it take to beat them last week? Like
a 66-yard field goal hit the crossbar.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So Swift has been excellent. RB3 this season. He's on pace for like 100 catches or something crazy like that. And they're going to give him more work. I mean, like, but the thing is, like,
right now, like, you can, agreed 100%. But Jamal Williams has been great too. Like, you know what I mean? You don't have to beat DeAndre Swift up right now because both your running backs are doing pretty well. Like,
I just wonder if they're going to get him some more early down work because they've been mixing Jamal Williams in a lot in the early downs, and Swift has come in passing situations, and it's been a really good compliment.
It has. Yeah.
Somebody said to me, like, maybe fantasy wise, and it's not the same because they're not the same running backs, but they're both playable like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are
sure.
in Cleveland.
Wow.
Because
I mean, but you're seeing that across the league, right? Like you're hearing that about in Dallas, Pollard
Zeke,
and Zeke. Like you're hearing the same thing, right? Like I don't know. It seems to be, especially early in the season. To me, Swift was banged up a bit. Like we weren't sure of his health coming into the season, so maybe that's why they mixed Jamal in. And now as he's getting healthier, yeah, they're going to use him more probably. And I wouldn't be surprised like that. Like you said, sky's the limit for him then.
I just love that people faded him. I mean, it was so, the signs were so obvious that his ADP was way too low. I reached to get him everywhere I could, because
which I've learned that's what you got to do when you really like a player. You see it, like you see something.
And I've done, and
that's where you grab the value. It's true.
And I did it with Mike Williams as well. I did the exact same thing, because at the end of the day, if you trust your process, you have to, and you stick with your gut, because when you're right, it sure as hell feels a lot better than being, exactly. But he's been great. James White injury. He's done for the season, and he looked really good. And that is a player that Bill Belichick trusts a lot. Okay, we know that. And why does he trust him? Because he's really good in pass protection, and he gives you a different dynamic. So now he's out, and now there's reports that Damian Harris not so good in pass protection.
Yeah, well,
and
another guy who can't hold on to the ball a lot. Like he's been having some problems. He's not great in pass protection. Yeah, he's leaving him exposed, and he's not making the most, like we talked about, with the rushing attempts he's getting.
So where are we with Damian Harris at this point? Like if he's not going to get passing that work, that looks like it's going to be Brandon Bolden or maybe JJ Taylor.
Yeah, him too. And he also got Ramondre Stevenson on the bench, but. Like, I don't know, he's athletic, but you're right. I think the other one, I think JJ Taylor is the one who fits the most closest to James White. Like,
as long as he can block.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the key part, right? Because you're not going to piss off Bill Belichick, or else you're going to be on the bench. You're going to lose those opportunities pretty quickly.
So are we just at like Damian Harris is an RB3 flex play right now?
Yeah, I know. He's actually, I should have probably had him as one of my disappointments so far this year, because I was high on him, especially after they went to Mac Jones as a quarterback instead of Cam. I thought he was going to get the rush work. He was going to get the touchdowns. And yeah, he had
a great first week.
He did have a good first week. Besides the fumble that cost them the game, which started him along that path, I think. But you're right, like him not being able to catch those passes and stuff, knocks him down a tier for sure. And
you probably drafted him as your RB3 or your RB4, so you might be a little bit safe. And maybe you picked up a guy like Cordero. Like I'm starting Cordero Patterson over Damian Harris right now.
Too. Yeah. Oh, without 100%. A doubt, for sure. You got to ride that wave, right? Stay with the hot hand for sure. So let me throw one at you, Matty. What do you make of the Josh Gordon signing in KC? Are you picking him up and stashing him, or what? Like,
well, I did. You saw that. I picked him up in one of our. I had a spot that I felt the player that I was dropping wasn't of any value, and if Josh Gordon pops, then great. But I didn't go crazy trying to pick him up everywhere, just because the guy, first of all, can't stay clean. I feel bad for him, because clearly there's a problem here. But the other thing with Gordon is he just hasn't played a lot in the last like 7 years.
Right.
So what are we expecting from him?
So that's what I was going to say. I kind of look at it like the Antonio Brown situation, where it's going to take him at least probably a year to get integrated. If you're right, if he can stay clean, if he can stay on that path and stay committed to the team, then like, if anything, like you said, maybe pick him up in Dynasty or something for next year, where I don't know.
Even that he's older too. Like there's not much value. I merely picked him up in case he pops, so that I can trade him to some sucker. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
right? Because if he gets
one good week, somebody will jump on him.
And people see name recognition.
Exactly.
And the key is, Jeff, he is part of the Chiefs offense. If he went to if he went to Atlanta, nobody's talking about this. If he went to another team, like if he went to the Raiders,
it's the same reason McCole Hardman or Pringle, like those guys can get you. Like you can put them in maybe take a chance on a week and they score you a bunch of points. Like it's just one of those good offenses where you're hoping some pops for a week. And
the only way that it happens is if teams like Tyreek Hill got shut down last week.
Yeah.
But Travis Kelce ate. So it's a balance.
One or the other.
Yeah, they just, that's not how the offense works.
We're gonna talk about that offense too, man. They're not clicking on all cylinders yet, but I'm sure they'll put it together.
Jeff, bet the house that the Chiefs cover the spread against the Eagles. I think they're gonna beat them by like 20 points. Like
probably.
I think they're
send a message. Sure.
What do the Chiefs have to worry about?
Yeah,
really?
No kidding.
They'll be fine. Andy Reid's a good coach.
The Raiders and the Chargers. don't have much to worry about. You're right. Anyway.
But it'll be very interesting down the stretch. That's it for us for episode 5 of the Front 4 Fantasy Football Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at MattyMar89, at J_Party, at Front 4 Fantasy. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Podbean. And that's all I got for you today.
Do it.
Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.